coming to the metaphor part, the reading material which Taras introduced was regarding banana in general, starting from Adam and Eve and coming till industrial revolution till the late 21st century. So when we researched about finding a metaphor for dialectical historical materialism, there was no better metaphor than the plant itself, its biology. So coming to the form versus content dichotomy, the fruit itself, the touch and feel of the fruit with the peel, it is rubbery, it looks kind of hard when you squeeze it, but when you peel it off, the inside fruit, it is, you cannot imagine, if you haven't seen the banana before in your life, you cannot imagine how it will be inside. It's yellow outside, it's white inside, it's hard, rubbery outside, and it is all squishy and mashy inside. So that we consider, we took as the metaphor for the form versus content dichotomy. And also going on about the sustained capitalism and various gimmicks which the owners do to keep the workers under control. So for that we took the metaphor of the banana's reproductive system, how it actually happens. So this is actually the flower of the banana, but this is not the way it reproduces. Common knowledge and usual way plant reproduces, they have flowers and pollination occurs and there is cross mixing of genes and something new comes out as through the process of reproduction. But in the banana, this is just for a show. This is sterile. There is no reproduction occurring through the fruit, through the seeds in the banana. What actually occurs is through the roots. The root of the banana is kind of in the form of, it's like a potato, it's called a palm. And how the banana reproduces is, it doesn't actually reproduce, it creates a duplicate of itself. It's a clone. So the metaphor here being the underlying economic structure of historical material, capitalism is being reproduced, but there is a illusion that there is a fruit which comes out in the end, so that the workers are being. So coming to the overall structure of the reading. So initially we have the underlying economic structure of the banana trade and banana plantations, and then overarching of that is the corporations which do this trade and what are the factors which influence the corporations to exploit various economies, and overarching on that corporations, what the corporations do to influence the countries and the governments, the political system. So the superstructure of the corporations and the countries and the basic economic structure is based on the large scale agriculture and selling of banana. Coming to the economic structure, the mode of production is agriculture. The owner being the banana trading companies who also own the plantations and they grow the banana trees. And the means of production is plantation and taking care of the plantation, mostly in terms of manual labor, manual husbandry. And the workers are the plantation workers in the local geographies, from the local economies, which work in the plantations. And as usual, the factors like exploitation come into play. And the constraints are geographic limitations. Banana is a tropical fruit. It's a tropical plant and you cannot grow it everywhere. So this is one of the main constraints which influences various elements of the superstructure in the banana economy. And shorter shelf life. Once you cut the banana from the tree, you have to consume it within, say, 2 weeks. If you don't consume it in 2 weeks, it will decay. So this also influences other activities like improving the transportation system in the local economy where banana is grown, which is actually because of this constraint, not for developing the economy in that region. So there are these double standards, and on the surface it looks like they're developing the economy, but in the bottom there is actually a constraint which goes about dictating the development of transport.
So we start with looking into how the corporation starts playing into this industry. So they started off simple motive of profit. So the fruit itself, it moved from being a simple, commonly grown crop which is consumed right next to the tree, it moved from there to being transported all over the world and becoming a very exotic and a costly fruit. Now, specifically how this is, how this came to be so is because it can only be grown in particular regions, and as Jagdishan mentioned, it has a short shelf life. So this all led to it becoming a very costly fruit, and also that it's not so easily available. So what the companies did is that they employed economies of scale in order to bring about a greater profit. They controlled the distribution and the transportation channels. Now from this motive of profit, it moved into exploitation. The distribution and the transportation chain that they owned, this also led to some land and labor domination. They bought land very cheaply from the Latin American countries. There was lobbying with the governments. There was a domination of the labor. There were very harsh working conditions. The railroad construction is one example. This construction was done in order to improve the transportation system so that they could get the crop and they could get their profits easily. Now this construction was done through very dense forests, very difficult regions, and under the pretext of development of the third world countries of Latin America, this development actually led to the loss of more than 5,000 lives. There was suppression of unions. This was aided by the government. The US government provided troops under the pretext of protecting their trade, and actually what they did was that they suppressed the unions, they used the military force on them. The third stage that comes is the domination stage, where the American business overruns the Latin American economy. They use what is called a tract for land deals. They offer them development in turn of getting their land. Now, for them, it seems like a win situation that they are getting development for free in return of just giving them land. But actually, the value of the land and the crop that is being grown there is way greater than the tract that they are developing. They also do political lobbying and threaten the countries using again the aid of their own US governments. There had been a tripling in the consumption of this crop in one decade, leading to a massive increase in their profits. San Zamore and Honduras is one example of how this played out. San Zamore, along with mercenaries and recruiting the former president of Honduras, they overtook the current government in Honduras with a military coup. And all this was done totally in order to get free land and tariffs for the companies. So what the corporations were acting in terms of was not exactly the reality. They put forward a lot of altruistic measures. They built hospitals, they built schools, but in reality the working condition was such that no one could actually utilize those facilities even if they were there. They were being exploited to the point that their very existence was a difficulty for them. Development of infrastructure was contrasted against the loss of the lives that were involved. The benefit for the country in terms of development of these third world countries was actually contrasted with the control that the company actually has over the government and the country itself. The health benefits that were being so claimed by this fruit were actually being backed by research labs that had been hired by the company itself. They also propagated that we should not refrigerate the product, it should be consumed immediately, whereas they themselves use that as a means to enhance the shelf life of the product. This is a statement that came out in New York Times in 1924, that the lowly banana rebuilds an empire, and they compared this with as the resurrection or a similarity to what the Mayan Empire was at some point of time in the Central America. But the reality was that there was a decreasing life expectancy, there were more number of deaths, there was degradation of land, and there was a lot of control by the company over the countries, as well as brutality to those who oppose them in form of military actions. Now, in this video, you see that instead of the standard happening that a man slips over a banana, what we are seeing is that a banana slips over a man. Usually we have the banana peel being discarded. In this scenario, it's actually the man, it's actually the workers who are being discarded, and actually the banana trade and the industry of the banana and what is supposed to be that is being slipped upon it. If you move one level higher, we will see that in the background of the domination of these corporations are the vested interests of the countries themselves. A statement in the Los Angeles Times in 1899, Uncle Sam's New Fruit Garden. Now this refers to the entire Central and Southern America, which is being regarded by US as their own farming land. We all heard of the Spanish Wars in 1898. But something that followed for the next 35 years was the Banana Wars. These are the instances of over 28 US military actions in Latin America purely with the intent of aiding the banana industry. We see here two covers of the numerous books that have been written highlighting the exploitation that took place during that era. There was increasing control over Latin America by US. As I said, there are a number of military interventions. A specific case I would like to highlight here is the Honduras case, where in 1912 US invaded Honduras specifically to gain rights for the United Fruits Company in order to acquire the land there, grow the fruit and transport it, which is not being given to them earlier. They were also working with JP Morgan in order to overtake their customs service so that all that high amount of tariffs that the country implied would come to US itself. There were also many instances of military action to force down strikes, to cover and control elections, and obviously to coerce the local armies. Count von Weyck was one abbot of a Roman Catholic church who was traveling worldwide, and when he traveled South America, he gave this statement that the banana is a weapon of conquest of the US, and this was published in the New York Times in 1916, and it raised a great hue and cry over what the US was doing in Latin America. Now you give it over to Akash.
So apart from the impact on the human beings and the workers of that area, the banana plantation also had a huge impact on the entire nature and the habitation of that area. So these firms, they didn't have any connection with the land of the area or the habitation, so they willfully disregarded the entire laws of nature which have been in place for more than thousands of years. So banana as a crop had never grown in the Central America and Latin America countries. They had originated in Philippines, but these firms, because of somehow USA had considered banana as a luxury item, so they started selling the banana to these countries, and because it was not a native fruit, the practices were not the way agriculture should have been done. So the entire crop came under a lot of pathogens, attack from a lot of pathogens, and diseases like Panama disease and Sigatoka actually affected a lot of these plantations. Impact of this was that hundreds of acres of plantations actually got ruined because of the diseases. The companies had no interest apart from the purely economic interest in these areas. So they simply packed up from these lands and they went to other lands. So they had no concern about the employment revenues which the packing up of how their factories they put up on the areas. And because these diseases were communicable, so the diseases just followed them everywhere. But every time they just packed up their boxes and they moved to another area. The production continued. The demand always continued in USA. The production always matched up because there are always more lands to conquer. So the railroads got uprooted whenever these farms and whatever development they had done prior to starting of the factory, they simply uprooted it all. The lives of the people got uprooted, you can say. The entire economy of the places whichever they left, they just collapsed. Then another impact was when these farms tried to fight the pathogens. So there was no knowledge of banana in the world at that point of time. So many new attempts were done by these farms. For example, they started the United Foods, which they credited with 3 of these developments. So they started the aerial spraying methodology, which we have seen that even today has been causing a lot of impacts on the environment. The DDT, the use of DDT was first started by United Foods, which again has been proven to have had harmful effects. Then there was this case in which copper sulfate mixture called Bordeaux mixture was given to the plantation workers, and it was seen that this mixture actually helps in fighting against the pathogen, one of the pathogens. So this again had a huge impact on the lives of the workers who were spraying it. These workers were promised extra wages for spraying this mixture, but in fact there were fatal consequences for them for spraying this. The copper basically entered into their veins, and many of them turned to have respiratory issues, which even led to deaths in many cases. It was noted as a gap exchange, such that human lives were being traded for the lives of bananas or the production of bananas. Again, they started water drenching the entire areas. Huge infrastructure of canals were made, so in an attempt to wipe out the pathogens through water. But this again led to a lot of flooding in that area, and this all got unreported. The land, not just the pathogen, but the entire land, the entire plantations got uprooted in that process. So this is the pop song. During the time that there was due to the diseases, the production of banana had stopped. So this is a pop art. A song got made in USA called "Yes, We Have No Bananas." So it's a very ironical thing that in one place USA was making pop songs over the shortfall of banana, and while the Latin American economies were being destroyed because of this entire cycle. Other impact, you can think that USA was actually considering banana as a valuable product, as a luxurious product, and the demand of the consumers was actually driving the production. But on the other hand, how it affected Latin America, that the consumers or the workers, the people, they have got heavily exploited. They are working in poor working conditions. They were suppressed. There was no rights, free rights, as you can say. USA just romanticized the banana. There were new dishes made. Banana split is a very famous dish, as we know, the custard and all. But Latin America was used as a dumping ground in which it was just planted. So USA was just, you can say, outsourcing the production to Latin America and just using it for their own consumption. Again, it was actually just a cash cow for the US enterprise. That's how it all started. But if you think about Latin America, it led to huge political instability, economical instability, and loss of control. And basically, US had a proper hegemony over these countries for a long time. Now, a case in point is Guatemala, how US actually took over the hegemony of and the political control of Guatemala. So this was a deeply impoverished country, and the life expectancy was even less than 40 years. It's on the very top of the Latin America or the South American continent. It was very close to USA, and it was it had a very tropical region which was perfect for the production of banana. So the United Fruits had started there in the 1900s itself, and they controlled over 75% of the entire banana crop. And they had, through their associations with the politics or the dictators of that region, they had almost maintained the absolute control over the entire country. But since this country was quite close to USA, the middle class had started to awaken there. So this led to a revolution in the 1945, which was held by, which led to establishment of democracy in the country. Around 10, they had around 10-12 years of, as they call it, the 10 years of springtime. In this time, during this time, the United Fruits and the Guatemala country, they collaborated with themselves, they worked for the benefit of the country. But over the time, there was the new president, Jacob Arbenz. He recognized that United Fruits are actually exploiting the country as a whole. So he redistributed the unused land. So United Fruits hardly had 60% of land which was being used in the production, but the rest of the land was just fallow. So it was not, they just owned it, but there was no production on it. So they decided to redistribute it to from capitalists to the landless people, which led to a confrontation with the United Fruits as well as the confrontation with the USA. So the United States of America helped them step in there to help the United Fruits. They propagated the idea of Mr. Arbenz as being a communist. So this was a model which they had just successfully deployed in the Iran. So they were successful in deposing one of their presidents over there. So the same model they deployed here. They indulged into psychological warfare. They confused their armies of people. They gathered the support of their entire American people in telling them that false reports were planted about the atrocities which were committed by the Guatemalan government over the people. And this is how they gathered support, and they finally won over the Guatemala. So this model, you can say that is being continued even today. It's not like over the past 60 years this model has been changed and has almost been perfected today. So this is a quote by Ron Perkins, who was one of an ex-CIA diplomat who actually aided USA in doing some of these things. So this says that the empire has been built primarily through economic manipulation, cheating, fraud, and seducing people into their way of life. So talking about democracy and capitalism as the buzzword, as the things which will bring utopia into the entire world. So this is how USA has been manipulating people over the years. Again, same thing, neocolonialism. I mean, even today, many countries have been defining it. USA, Russia, China, even India have attempted to do it with Bhutan and Nepal. So this has had major repercussions across the world. So if you think about Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, you can see how the states of these countries are today. Even Nepal, because it was always being used as a, what do you say, testing ground by India and China over these policies. So it could never really gain a political or economic stability in that region. So if you think about, if you compare Iraq and Latin America, you can say that banana oil have been used as for the similar purpose by these countries. So again, if you think about, if you consider the dichotomy here, so US always claims to be the strongest democracy in the people, always working for the benefits of their people and the entire world as a whole. But the policies of USA are often formed considering the demands of the rich or the multinational firms. So if you think about it, the way the banana got, if you just consider that example, banana became a very popular fruit within a span of decades in USA. It was not like that the consumers were actually demanding it, but the firms, because they advertised it so heavily and the government so actively promoted it, and they had the business idea behind it, so it was basically imposed upon the people. lobbyists and patient groups have always been following their policies. And not just theirs, they have been routinely violating the democratic rights of other countries, just in order to maintain their own political hegemony. Then, if you consider free markets, again, it's been said that free market system will help or eradicate all the global problems. But in reality, the market actually benefits only those who have the proper. So, the Latin American countries were actually reduced to the only as banana producing factories. The aspirations of their people, the aspiration of the market of that country was never really bothered with or considered.
Coming to the contemporary example in the management domain, nothing is more contemporary than corporate social responsibility, especially in Indian context with the new companies that came in last year. So, what is corporate social responsibility? In form, it looks like it's a philanthropic activity. There is a lot of genuine concern from the corporate or the board to help the society in which they act. And this is exactly like the banana fruit, which looks good, looks like it's something new, comes out of pollination, new genes coming up, and it gives a sweet fruit. But the content, it's a market. It was used as a marketing gimmick, as it was a market advantage for specific companies. But now, since every town, Dick and Harry company has started using it, it has become self-serving. They are finding out ways how CSR spending can benefit the company there. So this actual content is the actual corn of the banana plant. You cannot see it. It is under the soil. It perpetuates capitalism from its very own roots. It is the same capitalism growing up again and again, but it gives you the illusion that some new bananas, new seeds are formed on the ground. So one of the alumni, he's a major CEO in one of the largest paint companies in India. So he came to campus a week ago. So he said CSR should be designed in a sustainable manner. And according to him, the only way it can be sustainable is if it adds to the company's profit. So this is again another profit-making arm of the company. And how they make it profitable is that they do community development activities, spend and show it as a CSR spending. But what they do in the community development is they train painters to learn sophisticated painting techniques, which will again serve the company to sell more value-added products. And which they will anyways be doing even without CSR. They will be doing it for a chance. So this is how CSR is being used as a technique to perpetuate capitalism. To end,
Eat a banana and bananas have to ripen in a certain way when they're flecked with brown and have a golden hue. Bananas take the best and are the best for you. You can put them in a salad. Green? No, not yet, my dear. That greenish way you're looking means that you are ripe for cooking. How about really? No, when you are fully ripe, my dear, those little flecks of brown appear. You're most digestible, my friend. Delicious too from end to end. You can put them in a pie, any way you want to eat them. It's impossible to beat them. But bananas like the climate of the very, very tropical equator. You should never put bananas in a refrigerator. Bananas are a solid food. The doctors now include in baby's diet. Since they are the